Greetings. I am Dr. Noni Davis here from St. C Academy, and I am a legacy owner of this private African centered school. We've been here for 28 years, and our mission is to make sure that we provide a African centered worldview of education, history, science, ELA, literature. Um, for the purpose of just creating a space where our children can feel whole and inspired and proud of their ancestors and proud of their own families. Um, I'm a legacy owner, like I said, I inherited this school from my parents. Um, over the late William Edward Davis and my mother, Sylvia Davis. And so today I want to continue to speak on the Underground Railroad. And I guess because this has been a digging a hole for me, I just am enthralled by the information that I am continuously learning. Some I had some idea about, but there's always something new as I pursue this journey of really understanding who our people were. I am always amazed um, at the things that the ancestors were doing and how they were um, determined to be free, and even the ones who didn't necessarily run away, how they were aiding people who were trying to run away, and sometimes they just found ways to practice their own self-determination, even if they stayed on the plantation. But one of the things I wanted to talk about today was, you know, uh, i- introduce some of the another space of Southern Underground Railroad activity. But, before that, I wanna just acknowledge, most of us are familiar with Harriet Tubman, who for her heroic legacy on the Underground Railroad, as a conductor, as a spy and cook and a nurse during the Civil War. And I know so many of us are aware that she helped at least 300 people escape on from slavery, but she also aided in the release of about 800 to 1,000 people from liberated 800 to 1,000 people in South Carolina during the Civil War. We've also heard about William and Ellen Craft, who were an enslaved couple. Mrs. Craft was a very fair skinned African woman and was able to uh, what is it, pass as a sickly white man um, with her husband who portrayed her black manservant, and she was able to escape from Georgia. And then they became abolitionists. And then we also know about Henry Box Brown, and there's so many stories of escape. But we know about Frederick Douglass and how he escaped via water. So we've learned about the ways people were escaping via water. We learned about people who were escaping via land through, the Guilford County 500-mile Kahawa trail. We know about people from, Rocky Mount. We focused on North Carolina and Virginia. And so I wanted to today go travel, talk about or discuss people who traveled south instead of north. And I know I've already introduced Fort Mose, which was underground on the Underground Railroad for people who lived in South Carolina and Georgia. Quite few people were able to escape to Florida via Fort Mose, and and today I wanted to also explore another location through Texas, which in Mexico, and explain some of that. But before I go there, while I was learning about the Mexico Underground Railroad, the Freedom Trail, or for self emancipators, which is a new term I've learned as well, I wanted to talk about what this gentleman introduced while he was talking about Mexico. I don't know if how many people are familiar with this guy. His name is David Ruggles. I'm going to show you a quick picture of David Ruggles. Okay, so David Ruggles. Oh, wait, let me hold this correctly. All right, so David Ruggles was a founder of the New York Committee of Vigilance and Anti-Slavery and Black Self-Defense Organization. And one of the things that is so interesting about Mr. Ruggles is that he formed this organization in New York on November 30th, 1835. And the sole purpose of this organization was to fight against white police officers and white organizations that were violent and committing all kinds of violent and atrocious acts against Black people. And so I was like, what? The Black Vigilance Committee, Committee of Vigilance. I said, yeah, Committee of Vigilance. And they were like not playing at all. Um, they were, Mr. Ruggles was known for um, tracking down people who were engaged in the slave trade. Uh, he There's a book that was written about his activities called The Kidnappers. Wait a minute, what was it called? The Kidnappers Club or something like that. The Kidnapping Club. So there was a whole group of white judges, white business people, and white police officers who were pro-slavery at this time. And you had the abolitionist movement in New York, but we rarely hear about the pro-slavery. I mean, we know this, Wall Street was all up in it, but there was an actual group who were going around, and they were, in order to get around the Fugitive Slave Act, they were trying to kidnap, not trying, they were actually kidnapping free Black people. Apparently, free Black women and children and men could, if they were outside, by themselves or somewhere, they were literally kidnapped by these people who and were traded or sold back into slavery. And so Mr. Ruggles and created a whole organization to fight this. And they said he was known for jacking people up, going on, boats and ships and finding kidnapped Africans, going all over the place, trying to find people who were missing. And he would go in there and fight for them. He would raise money from a lot of white um, white organizations who were anti-slavery, and he would use his money to go into to force jury trials, because with the Fugitive Slave Act, you had to go to court and provide proof that this person was enslaved to you, that you had property ownership papers. Well, like I said, that kidnapping club did not want to go through those trials. And so David Ruggles was fighting to make sure that these cases came before the court to force them to prove whether they owned the people. And if they couldn't prove it, then people weren't free. And so there was all kinds of, shenanigans that were going on. And this New York Committee of Vigilance was not having it. And he was not going to let them just destroy the Black community. They said he was a Black abolitionist. He was a businessman, and he created this army of self-defense. They were defending themselves. And so when you think about the Black Panthers and you think about all of these other instances of Black revolutionaries like Nat Turner and folks, this was in New York too. And he said, what else? The Ruggles was known for boldly, but okay. And anyway, so this man, the network of the vigilante community was widespread among Africans, and for 10 years they battled racist attacks against the African American community. So, and a lot of times, folks in New York were free. So if they were um caught, they really were uh, taking freed people, and sending them south. And so, give thanks for Mr. David Ruggles, because he was not having it. And just imagine, we don't know his name, and I wonder if he's even taught to about in the public schools in New York, because he definitely isn't talked to us. And the importance of understanding these revolutionary movements. um you had um the Nation of Islam, and you had Marcus Garvey groups. But to know that people who were developing these organizations or participating in these organizations are probably people who were part of, or had ancestors who were always part of these resistance movements. And I know for myself, my dad used to listen to Malcolm X on the radio. I mean, on our stereo, we had those big LPs, and it was nothing for us to hear Dr. King speeches played on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, or Malcolm X's The Ballad or the Bullet. I mean, I listened to that. So even for myself, that legacy of fighting for or advocating for the rights of African Americans is alive and well, and in me. This is from my own family. Um, so I want to go ahead and take this dive into the people along the southern border. So apparently, people who were headed south from Texas and Louisiana and Oklahoma and Alabama and several other states headed down. If they did, New York and Canada were so far from them that they chose to go south. In 18, I'm trying to think, according to the History Channel, Africans were always keen on any news that include information about freedom. And unlike the demand of return, so, I just talked about the Fugitive Slave Act, it was a mandate that any Africans who were found were returned back to their slave owners or whatever. But Mexico said, we ain't sending nobody back. And so it is projected that between 5 to 10,000 Africans actually escaped into Mexico. Um, and as discussed in previous videos, information about the Underground Railroad is mostly passed down by oral traditions, because um, it was such a top secret, Mission Impossible kind of thing, that no one ever talked about it, passed on the secrets. They couldn't pass on the codes. Any kind of secret codes were only told to the person who was running away. And some of them, they told people going to die. So they just didn't share any information. And so you may have had little tidbits of stories passed on to descendants of these freedom seekers, these self-emancipators. But um, those stories are have and indicate that there was quite a few people who were part of who took advantage of this Underground Railroad journey to Mexico. And because it was such a top secret entity, no one really knows the exact number of people who actually made it um made it south. um let's see. So Mexicans, like the Quakers, well, this is a trip. And so Mexicans, like the Quakers, were conductors on these railroads, and so it may not have been people who were rich and didn't have a lot of money, but they were there. So, Mexico and African Americans have this relationship that where they were actually helping African Americans to escape into Mexico as conductors. So, the conductors were not just Quakers and white people, they were also Tejanos, Hispanic people. And the reason why Mexico was such a important uh, place to travel was because in 1829, uh, Mexico had abolished slavery. Now, when they abolished it in 1829, Texas was still a part of Mexico. But I think in 1836, Texas re declared itself a republic, and therefore they were able to reinstate slavery. So now all the Africans who were there were like, "Oh, no, we out here, we out of here," and so they began their trek down south as a result of Texas falling back into the hands of slavers. Um, so one of the other things I learned is that Africans, they chose just like they chose different modes of escape here. What was hilarious is that um, there was some kind of newspaper report that Africans would take bales of hay and float across the Rio Grande. Now, people were like, "How did that happen?" Because, you would think their cotton would get soaked and then it would become heavy and stink. So they don't know how accurate that story is, but they were like, it showed the desperation. Folks were literally crossing the Rio Grande to get to the other side. Another interesting thing was this guy, Sam Houston, was the who later on became the president. No, no, he was the what? He was the president of the Republic of Tex he was the former president of the Republic of Texas, not president of the United States. But one of his enslaved, Africans, decided to, escape to Mexico and then actually fought in the same war on the Mexican side against Sam Houston, and we know, uh, apparently Sam Houston is who is credited for as the father of Houston, Texas, or whatever. But his name is what they is of major city in Houston. Um, let's see there. What is something else? So according to this lady, Maria Hammock, she did a lot of research on uh, Africans who escaped South. And in her article, she said that Africans were also escaping from North Carolina down to Mexico. And I thought, huh, that's interesting to think that someone would choose to leave North Carolina and travel that, but they also have a record, and I thought that was interesting because we're, here in North Carolina ourselves. Another thing that I thought was interesting is that that here in Stagville, which is an African American, plantation here that was one of the largest plantations in our area. It had 900 Africans there. Um, there were people who were part of Stackville who did move to Alabama in the 1840s, and I'm wondering if there were some people who were a part of that movement that also escaped from those people when they were resettling in the Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi area, and perhaps that's how we could because we know there was a big migration of people who left North Carolina to move that down south because they were trying to find new areas to grow cotton and tobacco, to expand their tobacco cotton industry or whatever. And so that is something that would be a possibility because quite a few families left North Carolina and moved down there. But another thing that I wanted to mention is that the Seminole Indians, let's see, Native Americans, also were, um, okay. Oh, wait, I wanted to show you a picture of Fort Mose. Uh-oh. All right, this is a picture of Fort Mose in Florida of Africans who were a historical reenactment of Africans escaping there. But everybody knows Harriet Tubman. Uh-oh. Harriet Tubman, and everybody knows, oh, maybe not, they don't everybody not know, but you've heard of Ellen and William Craft who escaped. But what I wanted to show you is this picture of Seminole. These are Black Seminoles who escaped to Mexico. And apparently, they said a lot of them escaped in 1852 during the Seminole War and from Florida, and they moved to Mexico and petitioned the government for land there. And so these are some of the descendants of the folks who were able to establish communities in Mexico. And so then another critical information is with Mexico is that in 1862, Cinco de Mayo, a Hispanic celebration of freedom, is actually about a fight to ensure that slavery remained abolished out of Mexico. So apparently, when the Texans, these white Texans, real felt like, oh, they didn't know how the war was going to go between, the United States, the Union, and the Confederacy. They decided, well, what we're going to do is we're going to move down to Mexico, and we're going to force them to reinstate slavery. And so this guy, oh, and the French too were in part of this because Napoleon had already lost the war with Haiti, and so he was also trying to find another place to uh, to set up that cotton relationship because the one of the things that happened when the South and the North started the Civil War was over the South selling cotton to Europe, and so it had, it was still related to slavery, but it was also economics. And so, the same as in New York, people did not want to give up this, want slavery to end because it was economically to their benefit. And so Napoleon was trying to do stuff, and, these Texans were trying to do stuff. And so they went to war with Mexico. And what happened apparently was Mexico said, y'all better go back home because we gonna fight. And Cinco de Mayo, the 5th of 18 May 5th, 1862, at the Battle of uh, Pueblo, Mexican General Ignacio Zaragoza defeated uh, the Napoleon and those Texans. That's him. And they said he may have been Latino, Afro Hispanic. I'm not sure, but that's him. And they said he didn't even have a really great army. Well, neither did Haiti, right? So for Napoleon might be over what do they call, given a whole lot of kudos and praise when he lost to Haiti and lost to this guy Zaragoza in Mexico, because they said he didn't have a formal military, and we know neither did Toussaint as far as what they consider to be a formal military. I'm like, if you got the gumption to fight, you don't need to have a whole lot of extra skill set. You have that skill set, but you also have that determination, and so this guy defeated Ignacio, Zaragoza defeated the um, Napoleon and the Texans. And so Cinco de Mayo was actually a battle that ensured that slavery was abolished in Mexico. Um, Another thing I wanted to show here was just this is a map that shows all of the routes going by land, going by sea, and then also down here, you see the trail going down here to Mexico. And, there's also these trails of people going to Caribbean, people in Florida. When the British took over Florida, a lot of Africans escaped to Cuba and Puerto Rico. So that's the reason why, well, not the reason why, but, that you had even more Africans populating those areas because they were escaping this enslavement. So it's just so interesting how there are so many different aspects of this Underground Railroad journey. It's so much broader than just a few people, traveling to Canada. There are in every state, I'm pretty sure, where you had slavery, you had folks fighting vigilantly against it. And I think it should be an era, encourage us because right now with the political situation in the United States, I don't want to tell anybody who to vote for, but I know we definitely have a group of people who are pro anti-rights for people. And you have another group who at least they're pro-rights. Now, they may not be the best, but we know that women will have rights. Our voting rights will not be impinged or infringed upon. Our our rights to over our body will not be infringed upon. Um, we got to do something about these immigrants. I believe the immigrants should be able to come to this country because everybody who is not indigenous uh, mm, should not have a right to tell people whether they can come here or not. Some people need to go back to Europe, and I think personally, immigrants would maybe perhaps raise the IQ of Americans. And I said that with my whole chest because it's very disturbing the way people don't know how civics works, how economics works, and they're just saying all kinds of foolishness. You got people dying up there in Asheville and who are literally fighting FEMA and resisting. And I'm not saying FEMA is perfect because we saw what they did in Katrina, but hopefully they have figured out how to do better. And I believe they have. I mean, they've had to reevaluate and fix themselves since the Bush administration. And I don't know. I just think we need to know more about our history so we will be encouraged about what who we need to be and what we need to do for this generation and future generations. I'm fighting for my grands, I'm fighting for my nieces and nephews, I'm fighting for my children and to make sure that they have what they need. But I want them to also know we fought and we won. We won. And we got another fight coming. But if we could win in 1862 and 1840s and defeat Napoleon and do all that. Will you do it again? Ashe. Asheo.
Liz Gutierrez. I am the founder and CEO of Enterprising Latinas. We believe that when women do well, their children do better, and the community does too. As a woman, there are many barriers that we have to overcome beyond the barriers of our own mindset. We're working to address the underlying issues that cause these disparities in health and in wealth in our communities, challenges like transportation or the lack of, challenges like unaffordable or unattainable or inaccessible childcare, challenges like access to workforce development training and education, challenges of capital. As a founder of this organization, I think that my inspiration has come from my own mother, who was a trailblazer, who was a warrior woman. My mother broke all the rules. I'm an extension of that.
I always talk to black women, they don't want to talk to me. The minute I talk to a white woman, they get mad. You want to think you're mad?
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I walk. I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I walk into the sound of drums.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I know my mother.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I can play the drum.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I can work with my hands.
I'm a St. Cia student.